everyone. I'm Father Alexander Har,
And I'm Father David Marshall.
and this is a special Christmas Advent edition of A Bridge Between, where we bridge our knowledge of the gospel. We bridge from one liturgical season to another, which is a very short bridge, by the way. And what else are we bridging today, Dave?
It's a cart path, it's a walking path. We are bridging, we're doing this really interesting thing. For those who are preachers and listen to our show, I am preaching on Sunday morning at Advent 4, and I'm preaching on Christmas Eve, Sunday evening, two sermons. And so we're going to do that. We're going to have Advent 4, some sermon ideas, and then we're going to do Christmas with some sermon ideas, and we're going to throw in our favorite Christmas movies, folks. So hang on, that's episode 2, but we're coming to it. So, and Alex, it is so wonderful to see you. He is back from COVID. He has survived. And how's your family?
Very well. Apparently, they're very resilient because this is the second time I've had it, and none of them have had it.
It's because they're giving it to you.
Well,
they're the typhoid Timmy. They're,
it could be, or it could be they're just much more resilient and hardier peasant stock than I am, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So same thing around my house is that I actually came down with it, but several of the folks had glancing blows where they tested positive at no symptoms. And so, yeah, it's fascinating. But I am so pleased we're in a place nowadays where we have the technology to be able to withstand these things. So,
Well, and I'm just going to give a shout out to the clergy and vestry and lay leaders in my parish who, on short notice, really took care of everything. You know, my associate, Father Richard Earl, he's amazing. You know, I told him on Thursday morning, guess what? You're preaching. And he said, okay, I'm preaching because you're sick and I will take care of it. And he even took care of a committal the same day. So,
oh my goodness.
yeah,
Wow.
it's wonderful when you have a group of people who are a good team and you can depend on them, and I'm very grateful.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And when I had it, it was also over a Sunday. And yeah, I have a fantastic team. It's great. And because we aren't people gathered around a minister, we're people gathered to minister. So these type of things remind us of this. So yeah, that's fantastic.
And now, speaking of teams, if there was a team of angels today, we're going to be reading about one of the heads of the team of angels coming down and having a conversation with somebody.
Yes. That is what Advent 4 is about. In my opinion, it should have been Advent 3. Nobody ever asked. I'm just throwing it out there.
You didn't change it? Like you didn't change it?
I didn't. Thought crossed my mind.
Maybe next year. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. And I fixed something else, which I'll tell you offline. Um, but it worked much better. But yeah, so we have Advent 4, and we have this fantastic reading. And folks, you should know that I wrote at least 10 pages, 15 pages, I don't know what, it was a big paper in seminary about the particular passage that we have, which is Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 38. And I took the approach that Luke was writing to John the Baptist's community, that's the beloved community he was writing to, and talking to them more about who Jesus is as opposed to who John is, and had to do with this interaction between Elizabeth and Mary. That was my approach. So I have looked at every single word of this in Greek, and then Alex and I looked at the last verb, departed. Then the angel departed from her, and I had to look that one up because I didn't look at that one up in seminary. But yeah, so I'm excited to talk about this one. I love this passage, and Alex, please interrupt me if I get too nuts on it.
And just one last thing. What's so unique about this Sunday, because it does not happen very often, is we literally have a shift in liturgical season occurring over the course of 12 hours, or
Yeah.
less than 12 hours, because
Yes.
Advent 4 is in the morning on December 24th in the morning, and then Christmas Eve occurs that night, which of course means that Christmas, from a vigil standpoint, it's the vigil of the Nativity, occurs that evening. So many churches have kind of had to figure out how to do this. Some are not having a service in the morning, some are. I get a lot of questions from parishioners, and I don't brush it off, but I say, isn't it wonderful when the lectionary gets a little messy?
It's fun. It's exciting. Um, and my tradition is that I have served churches that have had Christmas Day services, and I tell them that's fine. I won't be there. Once my kids are grown, I will be there. But I have this short time of where we have kids at home opening presents, and for as much as I love you all, I need to be at home doing that first. And the only time I do that when I violate that now is when Sunday is Christmas Day. But um, so when I came to All Angels, I looked at their schedule and I said, I might be missing something. I see you have a Christmas Eve service, but no Christmas Day. And they're like, no, nobody shows up for Christmas Day. We only do a Christmas Eve. I knew, I knew this was my church.
Well,
And so,
the other side of that might be you don't do a Christmas Day. We need to put one in there.
no, no. I mean, they can. Uh, I'll set the stuff up and I'll have somebody. But and the other issue is that this is a barrier island church, and a lot of our folks nowadays are traveling for Christmas. And so it's interesting that other barrier island priests have told me this too, that we have difficulty finding chalice bearers for Christmas Eve because most of our folks are out traveling. So anyway, it's a wonderful time, and I love this service. So if there will be people, and Alex, you'll have them too, who will show up Sunday morning and will show up Sunday evening and are intrigued to hear how we do this, because this doesn't happen very often.
Right. So let's jump into the text.
Yes. So in June, Gabriel, the angel, by the way, angels don't often get named. So when we have a named angel, that's very exciting. It's exciting to me, at least. He approached Mary, and she's called a virgin, and there are literally 5 different ways you can translate that. I translate it as she had not had her first period. So that's how I would translate it, okay? As in, she is engaged, but she hasn't become a woman yet. And so that's the status that she's in.
I'm
Are you
gonna
having difficulty with that word, Alex?
No, I'm just gonna push back on that just a little,
Feel free.
because the image or understanding that I have of Mary is when she says, I know I have known not man,
Okay.
right? That's usually the translation I dive into. And I
Okay.
don't think that Mary was 12 years old or
Mm.
13 years old
Okay.
in the text.
What if she was 15?
Yeah, but I mean, talking about the time that we're talking about, this is like half her lifespan at this point. People
Okay.
died in their 30s. So
Sure.
I'm thinking that, and by the way, I also don't necessarily believe that Joseph was significantly older. I don't
Okay.
think Joseph is a man in his 40s
Yeah.
either. I think
Okay.
that's sometimes a misportrayal of Joseph. So for me, I think this is pretty much down the middle, as you might say.
Uh-huh. Sure. All right. So, at the risk of reading you, and folks, Alex and I did not intend to talk about this. So, we are entering new territory. How can this be? Is a good phrase. And then we have the conjunctive subordinate cause of since or because. And then we have this fascinating verb. And it is, again, that word that's translated as virgin. Um, so, um, so I disagree with what you're saying.
All right. I mean, that's
Because, yeah, so the idea that, yes, the word andra is thrown in there, and that's where we would understand the sense of that, I have not known a man. Well, that's not what it says. And by the way, there's a way to say that in Greek, and it wasn't said that way. So, what it's saying is that I'm not yet old enough to be married or to have to have a man to be married. I'm engaged, and so we're simply waiting for the clock of time to strike. And then once that happens, then the marriage is performed, and then, right? So
So I don't
that's
want
my
to
own
go down.
interpretation.
That's fine. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on this one in terms of discussing the virginity of the Virgin Mary. I think the important thing here to know is that if we were to enter into paternity court, as the show would be called,
Okay.
God is the Father, the
Well,
Holy
yeah,
Spirit.
yeah, of course. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's
And
let's
that's the
establish
point of it.
that and keep
Right.
moving.
Right. The other thing that my dad would like to point out is that one of the unique things about the 20th century and 19th and 18th is that the age that that's happening to women
Mhm.
is getting younger,
Oh yeah.
and it is accelerating. That the So I know of some folks who were raised in rural parts of Russia, and that doesn't happen until they're 15 or 16. Um, and it's something about this developed industrialized world where it's starting to shift. My dad said, by the way, it was fluorescent lights, but that's his theory. That fluorescent lights mess with our own because it's brighter than what we think it is. And anyway,
Yeah,
it's.
that's rabbit
Did
hole
you
number
say rabbit hole? Did you say to go down the rabbit hole, or
two.
or not
So
to?
so for those of us who are preaching on this, this is a miraculous encounter for numerous reasons. And the reason it is so is not only is God's messenger speaking directly to Mary and saying something that could happen if she says yes, but also we have the onus being placed on the individual to say, let it be.
Yes.
And I think that is one of the most important parts of this scripture. Mary is the yes in a history, long-standing history of humanity's no to God.
Yeah, I completely agree. So for those that are listening on Spotify, I'm nodding my head, which you couldn't hear. That Yes, the contrast here is that the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the child to be born will be holy. He'll be called the Son of God. And now your relative Elizabeth, in her old age, has also conceived a son. The sense that God is in charge of all of this, and then we have this contrast of Mary, who I believe is much younger, apparently, Alex, than you do,
Yep.
and then Elizabeth, that God is in charge of this. And the last thing that Gabriel says is, "For nothing will be impossible with God." I love that. And so then Mary, with all of that, said, as you had said, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." Then the angel departed, is departing, will depart from her. So I threw the aorist in. I had to, right? Um, so I don't know. This passage, first of all, makes me blush. I've blushed several times when I've been talking about this, and now I get really, really excited about this. One thing I'm excited about is, and I'm making sure you're not going to do a spit take when I say it. So I want to make sure you fully. I didn't
I'm
want you to do a
good. Go ahead.
whole Seinfeld thing. Is that the sense that the overshadowing is something that Mary first agreed to. The thing about "the Lord is with you, greetings, favored one," she was much perplexed and pondered. What does that mean? Like, that was something that was forced upon her. She didn't know, or she just is living her life. And then Gabriel says, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." And she's like, wow, that was something that was forced upon. But the rest of this was, um, and interestingly enough, the phrasing we have from Gabriel doesn't indicate that this is a question, but she treats it as one, which means it is. And she said, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me." Are you familiar with Stabat Mater, the brilliant piece by Dvorak?
No.
Okay, so there's this really cool Middle Ages poem that was written that then later turned into music. And if you were to look at the phrase, "For nothing will be impossible with God," then Mary said, "Here I am." The phrase between "nothing impossible with God" and the "then Mary said," that Gabriel told her a lot more. And what this poem is that he tells her not only is he the Most High, will be called the Son of God,
Mhm.
but he's going to do these things. You will watch him be crucified. You will hold his body. You will place him in the grave. She pondered it and said, "Here I am."
Right. And I think there's two things I want to point out. One is you talked about the idea of things that are kind of forced upon us and things that are not.
Right.
And the way that I would put it is that revelation is different than relationship.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
So, what I mean by that is the things that God reveals to us can be jarring, can kind of trigger the senses. It's something that we may see and go like, "Whoa, my gosh, I can't even look away." It's
Right.
just so in front of us. But relationship is different. Relationship is something into which God invites and asks to be invited into. And so when I think of the encounter that Mary has, there's revelation like, I don't understand this. I don't understand what's happening. I see these things, can't believe it. But relationship is different. And relationship requires this human consent into God's plan. So when I think about Advent 4, I focus a lot on hospitality. And the reason I do that is because so many of us on Christmas Eve, around this time of year, are getting ready to host people in our homes, or we are getting ready to go to somebody else's house,
Mm-hmm.
spend the night, sleep on a couch, who knows. And hospitality is something that is basic to every culture, it's
Mm-hmm.
basic to every human being, but we still need to learn about it to make sure that we are practicing it. And so, what is this divine hospitality that the angel is talking about and that God is asking for is to be accepted. And not
Mm-hmm.
just to be accepted, but to be allowed to dwell within. And when I like to put those two together, the human and the divine hospitality, it
Mm-hmm.
makes me think a little deeper about what it means to welcome people into my home, to
Mm-hmm.
feed them, to care for them. And it makes me also ask, am I doing the same for my family who I see every day? Am I treating a stranger better than I'm treating my own family?
Right. Right. Yeah. So that's the whole. Did the lighting just change, or is that my monitor?
Uh, I think that what happens is
Is
if
there a
you
cloud?
there's a cloud that's going by my window right now, so I can adjust a little bit
All
to
right.
that and brighten myself up a little bit. And there you go. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
so
better. Okay.
I know
Good.
I gave you a mouthful of thoughts there.
Thank you. And you had mentioned relationship and revelation, so I started diving into the Greek a little more as you were talking. And with Gabriel saying to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God." The "do not be afraid" is a this flash right now. It's not like "don't be afraid in the past, don't be afraid in the future." It's like right now, don't be afraid.
Right,
But your
right,
favor is favor, has been, is, and will be.
right,
Um, that that your fear shouldn't, this short-term fear shouldn't overlap your entire life, because what is overlapping your entire life is your favor with God.
right.
Um, and I think that Gabriel would say that, um, potentially to everybody, that uh, I have some people I do not recognize that are tapping on my window, and I don't know what they're doing. We'll see if my assistant stops them or if they're going to come into the office. We might have guests, was what I'm saying.
Well, either
Um,
way, we're actually coming to the end of part one. Remember, this is a two-part episode.
well, that's true.
We're
It is a
at the
two-part
end
episode.
of part one. Um, one of the things I would say to those who are going to be preaching on Advent 4, there's a line that you and I were talking about, which is to be continued.
Yes.
And it feels a great deal like Saturday, like Sunday morning feels like a to be continued type of episode. Like, keep watching, keep waiting, the good stuff is about to happen. And the what I would say in response to that is number one, keep Advent 4 as Advent 4.
Yes. Absolutely.
Do not preach a Christmas sermon on Advent 4. It's tempting, but I would not do it. Number two is to highlight to people to say this waiting that we've been experiencing, it's almost over, but not in a way that you might imagine, because we're going to hear the rest of the story. And then the to be continued is that each one of us is called to continue telling this story
Mm-hmm.
forever until the end of time.
Yep.
Continue telling the story of the incarnation of Christ
Mm-hmm.
until the end of time. So don't be the one who stops the to be continued.
You got it. And with relationship, with Mary saying, "Let it be with me according to your word," it would be interesting if Gabriel came to us on Advent 4 and said, "Do you want to continue to Christmas, or do you want to stop here?"
Right.
That, and we do that when we offer hospitality, when we allow for hosts to serve us, that we are allowing us to roll into Christmas, to let it be with us, is to engage in this very short and beautiful, amazing Christmas season. And that God is asking us now, do you want to continue? And I hope that we all answer, I hope me personally, and I hope the rest of us answer that yes, let it be with us according to your word, and that we can now enter into the season of Christmas.
Amen to that. So what we're going to go ahead and do is stop.
Okay.
And we're going to go ahead and stop there for those of you who may have seen a little bump in the video.
God bless you all. Have a wonderful week.
And we're going to get ready to record episode number 2 for Christmas.
Excellent.